Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be part 2 of the tileable pattern tutorial, and I will be showing you how to work with the scanned version of your watercolor pattern. I recommend that you use a scanner rather than a photograph, simply because it would allow you to control the resolution that your scan is going to come out at. But failing that, you can use a camera as well. I have scanned my file at 1200 dpi, which resulted in a massive file, but not a problem, because the bigger your file, the better the quality will be, and we can just downsize it as well, which is probably what's going to happen in the end. I wanted to scan it at this resolution simply because I wanted it to be as large as possible, just to see every single little potential imperfection that has come out from cutting the paper, from the watercolor drying. But you know, you can always downsize something and it'll look great, but you cannot blow something up, if you know what I mean. A 600 dpi file would work just as fine for what we need to, so depending on your scanner's capabilities, that should be okay. You should bring into Photoshop all of the size of your paper on 4 separate layers like you see on screen, and then we will go ahead and stitch them all up together and clone out all the imperfections. Select each layer, bring them to where their seams meet, and it doesn't matter if you can still see a bit of a trace of the edges of the paper, because we can get rid of that later. But try and line everything up together as perfect as you can. It'll depend on how straight your cuts were. You'll see mine were not perfectly straight initially, but again, it's not a problem. We can clone things in and make everything look seamless at the end. Press Ctrl P or Command T if you're on a Mac to access the free transform tool, and that will enable you to scale your selection up or down, or you can rotate it. If you right click while you're in the selection tool, you can access additional transform tools, and a very useful one would be the distort tool, which you can use and drag each corner of your selection as needed to kind of line it up with the rest of the image. As you can see, the bottom 2 layers of my image are a bit darker and less contrasting than the top 2 layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in a group. You can select both layers and then drag them on the folder looking icon at the bottom right of your layers panel, and we will apply a levels adjustment layer to the group in order to bring those levels up a bit so they would match the top 2 layers. So now that our levels are matching and the image looks pretty much whole, we're going to drag all of the layers into a group and save them for later, just in case we need to return to the original. I have also proceeded to make a flattened copy of all 4 layers, and I did that by pressing Ctrl Alt Shift E on the keyboard. Now I have applied a curves adjustment layer to this flattened copy, and I've adjusted it so my white is a pure white. Now if your image or if your original painting doesn't have a white background, or you don't intend for it to have a white background, you can skip this step and you can just adjust the curves to fit your idea of how you would like the contrast levels to be. This could be anything. You could play around and see what looks best for your image, but for mine I just wanted this crisp white background. So now that we have the levels as we want them to be, we can move on to cloning some of the imperfections out, taking care of some of the weird things that may have occurred in the background while we were scanning. For me, in my case, it will be getting rid of a lot of that dust and a lot of the lint that was on my scanner bed, which, you know, really I should have cleaned before scanning. Anyway, I've created a new layer just so I could work all the corrections on a separate layer, just in case I make a mistake. I've picked the brush tool because, as I said before, I want my background to be white, so it's going to be a lot easier than doing it with the clone stamp tool. And just pick the white you've got on the background just by pressing Alt and clicking anywhere on your background to select that color or to sample that color, and then just go ahead and brush over your image. I will speed through the process of cleaning this up because it's mostly just a question of, you know, brushing over the white areas in my image, and I will check back with you when we get to the cloning part. Right, so now that my background is as clean as it needs to be, when we zoom into the image, you can clearly see the seams of the 4 layers that we've stitched together. This will look really bad if you blow your image up or put it on a canvas or on a surface that is really big. So what we want to do is to clone over that seam so it looks as smooth as possible. So select the clone stamp tool, and what you'll need to do is to press Alt down and then sample somewhere close to the area that you want to clone. You'll want to do this because you want the values of your cloned area to be as close to the original as possible. You want it to look good, so you don't want to sample from somewhere where the pink is darker, for example, or way lighter. Try to find an area that's as close in shade and value as the area you want to clone from. Also, just a tip, try and select multiple areas, so like don't just go around with one area selection and then cloning in a straight line. Try and pick and sample from a range of areas just to kind of keep the look as natural as possible. We don't want it to be very obvious that we've cloned the image. We want it to kind of blend nicely. This, you know, this is a long process, but please don't cut corners, don't skip. This is the most important step in creating a seamless, stylable pattern. So now the fun part, we've cloned everything that was a problem area in our initial image, and now we want to see how to make it tile. Theoretically it should tile really easily, but what you're going to need to do is make either a flattened copy of all of your layers, another flattened copy, or just merge all the layers together. And then we'll move on to applying an offset filter on it. Now that you've flattened your layers, you will want to check the size of the image. Go to image size, and this will bring a little pop-up on the screen where you have all of the information about your image resolution, etc, etc. Take a note of your width and height in pixels on a piece of paper, and then work out the halves of those values, and they will be really useful to have at hand when we go and apply the offset filter. To do that, go to Filter, Other, Offset. And what this does is this will move the contents of your image or of your layer on a horizontal and vertical axis to your desire. If you key in the halves of those initial pixel values that make up the size of your image, it will recenter it, so it will bring forward the second design that we've painted onto the paper. And as you can see, I didn't really cut the image very straight and I didn't stitch it very straight, but that's not a problem because we can take care of that in just a minute. To make it easier for you to spot where the paper joins, because there's a lot of white in there, there's a lot of light colors, I would suggest you apply a color fill, an adjustment layer color fill, in a contrasting color of your choice, something that you think will allow you to see where the gaps are between the 4 layers. And I went ahead and repeated the steps for cloning that we did just a few minutes ago. Again, it's a bit of a tedious process, but it has to be done, otherwise our texture or our pattern will not look right in the end. Right, so our image is all clean, everything's stitched together, it's as seamless as it can be. Let's reset the values of the offset filter and bring the initial design forward. You can leave it as it is, it doesn't really matter at this stage, but just for the sake of it, just to show you how it goes, you can just reset the values. So you do that by typing in the halves again, the half values. And there you have it. Our image is back to its original position. Now I will show you how to turn it into a pattern, how to save it as a pattern preset into Photoshop. So go pick the marquee tool and select your image and then go to Edit, Define Pattern. Name your pattern whatever you want, I just left it as such. There you have it, that's your pattern defined and saved. So let's go and create a new file, just to show you how this all works. It doesn't matter what size your new file will be. This is just for illustration purposes. Go and pick the pattern fill tool if you want to, but I like to use the adjustment layer. And this way, if you slide up and down the scale modifier, you'll see that you can work with that. You can blow it up, you can make it smaller, you can make it repeat as many times as you want. And that will depend on what you want to do with it in the end. So that's it. That's how you create a tileable pattern in Photoshop out of a watercolor painting. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope I'll see you back here on my channel soon for some more stuff. Thanks for watching, and if you decide to recreate this or to make a pattern of your own, please share it with me on my social media and I will share it back. Thank you. Bye.